What mother doesn't want the father of your children to be a better dad? Here's the catch. You can't start bossing him around and telling him everything he's doing wrong that he needs to correct. It doesn't work. The best way to change your spouse and help that spouse be a better parent is by finding out what they're doing well and thank them for it. And thank them for it. Now, I know some of you are women who are divorced, but you've never met my husband. He's just terrible. He's just mean. He swears at the kids. He yells at the kids. He's horrible. I've met your husband. I've met your husband. Or some of you husbands are going, you don't know my wife. She's a control freak. She's just on those kids all the time. She's got to be doing something right. So you find that and you praise her for it and you encourage her. Moms, we throw fathers into orbit around our homes, don't we? We want them there, we don't want them there. They don't do enough because they're just never around. So we decide we're going to change things. We give them some chores to do. What do? They go do those chores, then what do? Complain about how they did it. Throw them back out into orbit. Duct tape can be a wife or a husband's best friend because you need to put it over your mouth when you ask your spouse to do a chore. My husband is the messiest kitchen cleaner-upper you've ever seen in your life. I don't know how he does it, but when he washes dishes, and particularly when he dries them, he soaks our kitchen. He takes wet dishes. He literally soaks it so much he has to take his shirt off because he's sweating. I'm not kidding you. I've been married 35 years, and bless his heart, he takes the wet dishes, and this is how he dries them. He flips it. He flips it. Every time he washes and dries dishes, I have him out the floor. But I thank him for washing the dishes. Why? Because I don't want him to go into orbit. And he'll go back into orbit around the family if I criticize him. Ladies, we've got to stop it. We've got to stop it. 2, change the way you talk at home. Well, I talk pretty well. Really? If you have any question, maybe what you need to do is record a conversation you're having, either with your spouse or with your kids someday. It's amazing what comes out of our mouths that we don't realize it. What's your tone of voice like? Do you yell at your kids? If you're a yeller, I wrote a whole blog on how to stop yelling because some of us get so angry and worked up with our kids. Some of us use sarcasm. Some of us tease. Let me tell you something. Kids hate teasing. Tease your buddies. Tease your girlfriends. Don't tease your kids. They can't deal with it. So watch the way you speak in your home. Speak respectfully to them, and they will speak respectfully to you. Speak respectfully to your spouse, and your kids will imitate you. Something as simple as that is going to change the whole tenor in your home. 3, ask yourself this question at least once a week, preferably every day. How much time am I spending with my kids? Average child spends 7 to 10 hours a day in front of a screen, 43 minutes per day with mom or dad. Now think about it. I talked about identity formation in kids. And that happens face to face with mom. It doesn't happen in front of a screen. And I know screens are a big, huge battle. But your child needs more time with you than he or she does with all the other stuff that they're doing. You see, time with a parent is critical because they've got to get that identity formation. If a child doesn't get enough time with mom or dad, guess what they do? They use their teenage language, which is, I'm mad, I want your attention, so I'm going to act like the biggest jerk I can. Because if they don't get your attention in a positive way, they're going to get your attention in a negative way. I had a patient that did this, and I see a lot of teenagers. She was completely out of control. 16 years old, dad was a urologist, mom's at home, maybe she had a sibling, I don't know. But parents are busy, busy, busy living life, and they had her and everything, and she just kind of imploded by the time she was a sophomore or junior in high school. She ran away from home, she dyed her hair funny, she shaved her head then, she pierced everything. She did whatever she could to get attention from her parents. And her parents came to me one day and they said this, Meg, will you help us find one of those schools out west where you dump kids in the woods and they get a bunch of counselors that shape them up and then we ship them back home after 6 weeks? I said, well, I can recommend a couple of places, but I have something I'd like to encourage you to try before you do that. And Dad said, well, what is that? Mom and Dad were both there. And I said, I would like you, Dad, to take your daughter camping for a few days. And this man, who's a colleague friend, looked at me like I had 3 heads. You want me to take this nasty person into the woods alone for 3 or 4 days? And I said, uh-huh. He said, she won't talk to me. I said, it doesn't matter. You can do it. He said, okay, I guess it's worth a try. So he convinced the daughter to go with him, and they went on a canoe trip. And they actually ended up spending about 5 days. The first day of the canoe trip was miserable. The daughter refused to speak. He said, so I didn't talk. I mean, she's not going to talk, I'm not going to talk. He said it was miserable, it was dead quiet. Have you ever been silent for 12 or 14 hours a day? And he said the first day was miserable. Second day, they got back in the canoe and the daughter starts, he'd ask a question and she'd spit at him, fight. And she'd say horrible things and she'd yell. And she'd snap and she'd snarl. And he said, I felt like I had a big snapping turtle in the canoe with me. The third day, they got back in the canoe, and the daughter's talking to him a little bit, and she starts to cry. And she starts to cry. And she couldn't stop crying. And by the 4th day, she started to talk to her dad. And her dad started to say, you know what, honey, I'm so sorry. I guess I've missed you. And she said, uh-huh, you've missed me. I've lived in the house with you, but you haven't seen me. That daughter is grown up now, and I'm happy to say that was about 10 years ago. They are very, very close. She never went to camp out west. Why? Because she spent 5 days alone with her dad. That's why she was acting so obnoxious. Every week you ask yourself, do I have enough time with my children? Or am I just shipping them off constantly to all these wonderful events and sports and music instruments and stuff that they're never going to do or play or participate in when they're in college? Why are you giving up your time of your children and not allowing their identity to be shaped because of some soccer team? Why? You've got to think about this. 4, stop wasting your limited time and energy on doing a whole lot of things that your kids don't really want to do. True story. I interviewed with a gal from the Wall Street Journal a couple days ago, and this is what she wanted to ask me. She said, Dr. Meeker, I want to interview you because I want to talk about motivation in children. It's okay. She said, how do you get a child motivated? I said, well, you know, it's kind of hard. How old? She said, well, I have a 5-year-old who won't play chess. And I said, really? How do I motivate him? Why does he need to play chess? Because that'll develop his intellect, and his friends are doing it. As a matter of fact, some of his friends have private chess coaches. This is the world where we're living in. Parenting has become a competitive sport. It's the only reason kids are getting coaches for chess when they're 5. 5, focus on praising character. I touched on that a little bit ago. Focus on developing your child's character. Does your child have perseverance? Does your child have patience? Does your child have courage? Does your child have faith? Does your child have integrity, or does she lie sometimes? What kind of life are you living in front of her? Because she's going to imitate it. She's going to start saying your words back to you. particularly when she starts to have kids. It's a very uncomfortable moment. I have a couple grandkids. But we need to be focusing on character more than the stuff our kids do, rather than performance. And whether you're a Christian or whether you have a faith or whether you don't, I see everybody universally trying to parent like their friends are parenting because we're too afraid not to. Stop being so afraid. Teaching your children humility, fathers, is enormous. Don't lie in your house. Your kids are watching. Teach them to be humble. My husband was a great example of this growing up, when our kids were growing up in our home. And he's a very humble person. We practiced together. He has a lot of humility. One day I was at work, he was at work, we had 4 kids. It's 7 o'clock at night. I didn't know what I was going to cook for dinner. I was pretty grumpy, the kids were grumpy. I hadn't even been to the store, and I said to him, I know what we're going to do. Let's go get some Chinese food tonight. And he said, fine. And I said, I'm going to order the order, and I'll call it in. Would you mind going and picking it up? He said, no, that would be fine. So he goes, and he picks up the Chinese food, and he comes home kind of a long time later, and before he walked out the door, I said to him, listen to me. I've ordered 5 different dishes from the Chinese store, and there's only one that I like. So before you leave the store, make sure you get the egg rolls, because that's all I like. Okay, not a problem. He goes to the Chinese restaurant, he picks it up, he comes home, and I'm opening all the little white boxes, because I want to heat it up. And I open the last white box, there's no egg rolls. And now it's 8 o'clock at night, and I was hungry, and so I was just a little more irritable than I was at 7 o'clock. And now we forgot my egg rolls. And I was very upset, and so I started to on him and yell at him, this kind of thing. And my little 8-year-old daughter came over to me, and she'd gone to this Chinese store with her dad to pick up the food. She came over and she started pulling my coat. Mom, don't be mad at Dad. I said, what? Because my husband walked out of the room when I started to yell. Don't be mad at Dad. When we were driving home from the Chinese store, Dad passed by Bryant Park and he saw a man rummaging through a trash can looking for food to eat. So Dad pulled his truck into the park, and he took the bag of Chinese food and he jumped out of the car and he went over to the man and he said, what would you like to eat? Take whatever you like. Guess what he took? You got it. Homeless people love egg rolls. So if you're ever working at a soup kitchen, bring some Chinese food. I was so humbled then. That daughter grew up, and after she graduated college, she believed that God was calling her into a mission trip. She was going to go to South America. Her dad said, this is great, because he also took them on mission trips. She learned to serve. And God called her into solo Indonesia. And she said, Mom, I think God has called me to solo Indonesia. I said, why? She said, I've been praying about it. I said, well, God needs to talk to Mom first. Then we'll decide if you're going to Indonesia or South America. She went to Indonesia for 1.5 years. It was very hard. She got off the plane. I said, honey, what's the one thing that you've learned by being halfway across the world for a year and a half all by yourself? She said, Mom, I realized God is enough. God is enough. You can't teach that to your kids, but you instill character in them so they go and they learn more character. We have a father crisis, not in the country, but in our homes. I began talking to you men about how under attack you are. But I want to tell you something. The clips that you saw the first time were fake. They're not real life. They're not real life. And you may go, they don't really affect me that much. Maybe they don't affect you, but they affect the way your kids perceive you. Before you leave here, you need to understand who you are from your kids' eyes. Take a look at this clip now. That's reality. That's reality. No matter who you are or how old you are, you never have enough time with your dad. Particularly if you have a bad relationship with him. Because everybody needs either more healing or more time to enjoy them. Fathers, go back to your children. Mothers, help your spouse or your husband connect with his kids. The most urgent need we have in America is not more money for schools, or not even change our health care system. We need our dads back. Donald Trump says, I know how to make America great again. I've got a better way to make America great again. Let's do our part to get our dads back in the homes, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, and in our states. God bless you. Thank you so much for being here.
All right, hey, listen, we had a great resource for you. It's in your books, okay? It's in